Stop using the realism argument in works of fiction like in video games and characters that are meant to be unworldly. It is the only argument people use when they cannot actually defend decisions of art directors, but they do not want to sound like an artificial fan. After all of the discussion that I have had about Mortal Kombat and the changes with the female characters, the way that their body types have changed, and also the way that their outfits have changed, I really wanted to talk about the realism argument since I've been hearing it a lot lately. I also wanted to bring into the discussion superheroes, since even now there are discussions on if superheroes should have realistic body types and figures, and that really does go along with the same question raised with Mortal Kombat 11. Now, when people raise these questions, they really mean they should be more along the lines of what an average figure would be. When you look at traditional superheroes or fighters, they are very muscular and very toned, well exercised, and that is not the average person. And to some people, they believe that characters should represent the average person since that in their mind is realistic. When you look at superheroes, or you watch a movie featuring these characters, they are not in realistic situations, and that is the problem. People try to differentiate the situations from the characters, and you cannot do that in the way that I am referencing. Usually something is said along the lines of, I am not saying the action that they are performing is realistic, but they should look realistic while doing so, since these are characters that do look like real human beings. But why? That's my question, but why? Look at Thor. Thor is enduring the energy of a star while he is trying to reignite the forge to form Stormbreaker. Why in any which way, shape, or form does it matter if his body type is of realistic expectations? He obviously is not portraying a real action. If his action is unrealistic, why can't he appear to be unrealistic? Look at Iron Man. Tony Stark is an average man for the most part, but since he is an average man for the most part, he would need to make sure that he has an above average body. He does not have incredible strength or traditional superpowers, so it is even more unlikely that he would have an average body type. These characters are along the lines of Navy SEALs and MMA fighters, and even people trained to be firefighters. Those are real people, trained and incredibly in shape people, but they are not a myth and they do not have an unobtainable aspect to them. To do incredible things, you have to be in incredible shape. Even in real life, most of the time, it is not ordinary people doing extraordinary things. It is extraordinary people doing extraordinary things. And that is not to say that normal people cannot accomplish these things, but it is very unlikely for it to happen, and in cases such as a character like Tony Stark, yet he's supposed to play off of the ordinary becoming extraordinary at times, but at the same time, that universe has gods that are alive, and he is alive at this point because of a piece of technology that exists in a universe due to elements that do not exist in real life. So they played upon realism, yes, but yet they over-exaggerated the elements needed to push it towards fiction. That's what this is fiction. In regards to video games such as Mortal Kombat, compare these characters to mixed martial art fighters. These fighters in real life, the female ones, wear bras and they wear shorts. They are not wearing layers of clothing because it restrains their movement, and what they are wearing now in some ways are more unrealistic than their previous looks where they were not wearing close to nothing on specific areas of their bodies. And you've made sure their overall body type is larger to add to that narrative. We are talking about forms of combat that do not and cannot actually exist, where the fatality system features inhuman acts, yet their clothing should feature a realistic aspect to them? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Saying that you are toning down character costumes due to realism is a very poorly formed, tenuous argument. They are fictional characters completing fictional tasks. This is fantasy. This is fiction. No one writing these stories are saying that they are portraying real people. They are creating characters in very unrealistic scenarios, and they are not retelling a real situation. Changing things like body types and outfit designs on established characters in established franchises ruins the escapism. Comic books and video games are a form of escapism. It is fiction. If you are saying that you are playing off of realism, then you need to go all in or sit down and form a different argument, because the one you are giving is very invalid. If you want realism, let's take out hyperspeed, light speed, wormholes in science fiction, and if we're going for realism, let's take out all of the fiction since none of it is proven to be real. This is not to say that fiction cannot be realistic or that it cannot have realistic aspects to it. There is plenty of fiction with realistic aspects, but if you are writing a story that is supposed to be similar to life, then you cannot have these unworldly scenarios, and that is perfectly fine. But Mortal Kombat is not a game that can simulate realism. It has gods and it has androids, and you cannot actually simulate realism in something like Mortal Kombat. And just like Marvel superheroes, or even DC, whichever you prefer, if you want your characters to look and seem realistic, then put them in realistic situations and settings, not fighting in an alternate plane of existence, fighting for the fate of humanity. But that is the end of the video. I really wanted to touch on the realism argument since I have been hearing it a lot. I have been getting quite a lot of feedback on my opinions on Mortal Kombat, and even with comic book heroes and superheroes as we know them, there always have been a lot of arguments on realism and how they should be more realistic, how they should have more average body types, and the conversation has started back up. And this conversation for realism with something along the lines of superheroes has been going on since the 90s, so I thought that it was good to mesh these two topics together since they are very similar in a lot of ways. But I hope that you all enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a like, and of course if you did not, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either which way. If you enjoyed the channel, make sure to subscribe and check out the links in the description that are ways to support the channel. But I hope that you guys enjoyed, and I will talk to you guys again really soon.